let us understand what is capital market. देखो, when it comes to borrowing money or when it comes to mobilizing money for इकोनॉमिक, आपको अपने बिजनेस के लिए पैसे लेने हैं, तो वन इज शॉर्ट टर्म मनी टेकिंग मैकेनिज्म, वो मनी मार्केट में आता है. जैसे व्हेन गवर्नमेंट बोरोज मनी फॉर थ्रू ट्रेजरी बिल्स का पीरियड इज लेस देन 1 year, so that will be in money market. But when you have to borrow for longer period, that borrowing will come from capital market. तो एक डिफरेंस बिटवीन मनी मार्केट एंड कैपिटल मार्केट इज, अभी तक जब हम बैंकिंग सेक्टर एक्सेट्रा पढ़ रहे थे, दैट वाज प्राइमरली मनी मार्केट, बट नाउ वी आर जंपिंग ऑन टू कैपिटल मार्केट. तो कैपिटल मार्केट इज द फाइनेंशियल मार्केट फॉर लॉन्ग टर्म फंड. पहला डिफरेंस समझो इसे मनी मार्केट से, यू शुड बी एबल टू डिफरेंशिएट इट. इट हेल्प्स टू जनरेट बल्क फंड फॉर गवर्नमेंट एंड इंडस्ट्रीज बोथ. तो गवर्नमेंट भी लॉन्ग टर्म गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड्स इशू करती है 40 years 30 years, so that is capital market में it's issuing it. Similarly, corporate sector also, they may be issuing short-term bonds, but they may also issue long-term bonds. So when they issue long-term bonds, long-term corporate bonds, that is in the capital market. Okay. Now, most common capital markets are stock market and bond market. Government का bond market या corporate sector का bond market, और stock market where you go and sell company shares or do IPO and get money from it. So the stock market allows companies to raise capital by selling shares of ownership in the company, or this is known as equity financing. For example, let's say there is this company. इसके initially the shareholders contributed 1 crore rupees and they have 10,000 shares. They have 10,000 shares of the company. जो shareholders ने शुरू में कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट करके 10,000 shares create किए. Now they want to mobilize more money. So what they'll do is they will, अभी तक this was a private limited company. Only some private people, 3-4 people who contributed 1 crore rupees were owning the company. First they'll make it a public limited company and then they'll do its IPO. That is, some of the shares will be made available in the market. Can you buy this share and give us the money? Are we understanding it? You buy this share and give us the money. अब इन्होंने जब IPO किया and someone bought these shares, like let's say some people came XYZ and they bought shares of the company, they gave them money. Is this money for short term or long term? This money is not redeemable. They cannot come back to them and say, take your shares back and give me my money. No, they cannot do that. So this is like very long term investment. कहाँ जाएगा? Capital market. Are we getting it? These shares are not redeemable. मैंने जब, अगर मैं कल LevelUp का IPO करता हूँ and let's say you people buy some shares of LevelUp and you give money to LevelUp. अब you are partial owner of the company, but you cannot come back tomorrow and say कि please take your shares back and give me my money back. No, you can sell those shares to someone else and take money from them. But company को तो long term पैसा मिल गया ना? Are we understanding how shares वाला mechanism is a long term mechanism? Mechanism for getting money for long term. ऐसे bonds are debt. जब आप stock market में जा रहे हो, you are using equity financing mechanism. But when you are issuing bonds, that is debt financing mechanism. Now, debt finance is redeemable, but after many years. If it's more than 1 year, it is long-term debt, and long-term debt redeemable होगा, but after some time, after long term. यहाँ पे government can also borrow and corporate sector can also borrow. So when we talk about capital market, we talk about these two mechanisms. One, you can go to stock market, other you can go to bond market. Now securities market, तो इनको ना हम securities market भी बोलते हैं. Securities market में you can have shares, preference shares, derivatives as well as debt instruments. तो basically हम बोल रहे हैं security market में एक share instrument होगा, एक debt instrument होगा. अभी we'll understand the difference between equity shares, preference shares, derivatives. ये सारी चीजें हम पढ़ेंगे, don't worry. we'll understand that. For now, assume ki they are shares. So this thing is called security market also. So security market mein you have a shares wala option, or security market mein you have debt wala option. In case of shares, investors have a share in the capital and profit. In case of debt, agar I have issued some bond and you have bought that bond, you have taken that bond. Let's say that bond is of 10 years. Do you have ownership in this company for 10 years? No. You do not have. When you bought the shares, you get the ownership of the company. But bond mein you don't have any share in the capital, you don't have any share in the ownership of the company. Second, बॉन्ड्स में भी जैसे हमने शेयर्स की बात करी तो शेयर्स में भी ऐसे ही इक्विटी शेयर्स हो सकता है, प्रेफरेंस शेयर हो सकता है, डेरिवेटिव्स हो सकता है. ऐसे बॉन्ड्स में भी यू कैन हैव बॉन्ड्स, डिबेंचर्स. इट इज जस्ट लेंडिंग to the company and the company is liable to pay interest on the capital borrowed and eventually return the principal amount also. Now हमने बोला bonds में there is bond, there is debenture. तो debenture is basically unsecured bond. Unsecured bond is called debenture. When it is secured, जैसे एक corporate player हूं मैं and I want to borrow 1 crore rupees from Rahul. तो राहुल में से कि give some security. If I give them security, ये ले मेरे land के papers ले ले for security. Then these are bonds. But when I borrow this money without security, what will it be called? Debenture. हम सबने bonds वैसे government bonds पढ़ा हुआ है तो I'm not going into, पर bonds are methods of taking debt. That is why debt financing में bonds आ रहे हैं. Bonds जब long term है तो capital market में है, right? And bonds जब unsecured है, they are known as debentures. Unsecured bonds are known as debentures. Okay. All debentures are bonds, but not all bonds are debentures. Do we understand this? Unsecured bonds are debentures. है ना? तो debentures are basically a type of bonds, unsecured ones. But all bonds cannot be called debentures because some bonds secured भी होंगे, they cannot be debentures. So both bonds and debentures may be convertible. अच्छा, इस convertible वाली बात को भी थोड़ा समझते हैं. What is convertible? अच्छा, convertible bond हम नीचे पढ़ रहे हैं, convertible bonds हम नीचे पढ़ेंगे डिटेल में. Let's come to understand the difference between shares, debentures and bonds. You may say कि सर आपने shares के बीच के differences नहीं बताए. What is share, what is preference share and what is derivatives? आते हैं उसमें भी. But for now, let us in a tabular form understand the difference between shares, debentures and bonds. Both these are bonds, unsecured bonds, secured bonds. And these are shares. तो पहली चीज है, shares are fractions of company's capital or they give you ownership over company. Do we understand this? तो if कल LevelUp IAS 1 lakh shares है, उसमें से you have let's say 10,000 shares. So you own 10% of the company. You have ownership over the 10% of the assets. Right? कंपनी का जितना भी एसेट है, you kind of have. अभी आप उसपे आके ये नहीं बोलोगे मुझे टीवी दे दो निकाल के. It doesn't work like that. But overall कंपनी का जो वैल्यू है उसका 10% आपका है. That happens in case of shares. But in case of debentures or in case of bonds, because these are debt instrument, they will not give you ownership, they will not give you any right over the capital. Got it? Second, performance of shares is dependent on what? It's dependent on the market. Share prices बढ़ सकते हैं, share prices गिर सकते हैं. But bonds में तो आपको if the bond was issued with this thing कि every year I'll be paying you 8% interest. Every year I'll be paying you 8% interest. You will keep getting 8% interest. Right? It doesn't have to do anything with the market. If you're not getting your interest, you can go to NCLT and say देखो मेरे पैसे नहीं दे रहा ये. Can you go to NCLT? बोलो इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोसेस शुरू करो इसके अगेंस्ट. अभी हम अपन ने पढ़ा जो दूसरा बैच है, पीएमपी वाला बैच है, उसमें हमने अभी पढ़ा यू कैन गो टू एनसीएलटी, है ना, अगर आपके पैसे टाइमली नहीं मिल रहे हैं. डिबेंचर्स अब देखो अनसिक्योर्ड है तो विल द इंटरेस्ट रेट बी हायर? यस. तो डिबेंचर्स आर रिस्की इन्वेस्टमेंट एंड thus they are usually not backed by collateral. Investors make investment decision on the basis of credit rating and reputation of the company. In fact, in दोनों में credit rating is something that plays a role. If the borrower has good credit rating, उसको you will be ready to buy that person's bonds even at lower interest rate, because credit rating अच्छा है, पैसे डूबने के chances कम है. Whereas if borrower has bad credit rating, you will either not give loan to this person, or when you will give this loan to this person, you will give it at very high interest rate because risk involved is very high. Now यहाँ पे fractional ownership है, यहाँ पे नहीं है. तो कंपनी में पे डिविडेंड टू द शेयर होल्डर्स. शेयर होल्डर्स को प्रॉफिट का एक कंपोनेंट मिल सकता है, whereas debenture holders receive interest payment periodically. It depends on issuing company's performance too. Bond owners receive interest on accrual basis. That doesn't depend on the company's performance. Shares are highly liquid. You can sell shares very easily, but bonds and debentures are slightly less liquid. Bonds may be saleable in the market, but वो debt को sell करना is slightly more difficult. Then shares don't have credit rating. Credit rating is for credit. When you are giving loan to someone, तब उसका rating होगा. So what will not have? Shares don't have credit rating, but bonds, debentures will have credit rating. Okay. Now let's go into shares and let's understand types of shares. हमने देखो, एक तो equity share था, दूसरा क्या था? Preference shares and derivatives. We had divided. Now there can be many more divisions. अब उस सब में जाते रहेंगे तो है ना, ROI भी होना चाहिए. When we are studying something, it should be like क्या इससे क्वेश्चंस आ सकते हैं, else we can do PhD only in stock market, है ना. my younger brother is preparing for CA. कल वो मुझे बहुत सारा ज्ञान दे रहा था बैठ के. आपको ये नहीं पता, आपको ये नहीं पता, आपको ये नहीं पता मर्जर कैसे होता है, आपको ये नहीं पता, क्योंकि वो सब पढ़ रहा है. इज प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर सीए, तो वो सारी चीजें कर रहा है, और हम वो सारी चीजें भी पढ़ सकते हैं, बट आरओआई अच्छा नहीं है. तो हम बेसिक लेवल पे अपना प्रिपरेशन करेंगे. विल डू ऑल द पीवाईक्यूज. विल सी दैट आर वी एबल टू डू ऑल द पीवाईक्यूज. इफ वी आर एबल टू डू ऑल दैट, इट मींस आवर प्रिपरेशन इज काइंड ऑफ सॉर्टेड. ओके, तो वी विल डिवाइड शेयर्स इनटू 3 टाइप्स. एक तो है इक्विटी शेयर्स. इक्विटी शेयर्स आर जस्ट नॉर्मल शेयर्स. यहाँ पे ऑर्डिनरी स्टॉक्स इशूड बाय अ कंपनी. एक कंपनी के 1 लाख शेयर्स थे. 1 लाख शेयर्स में से यू ओन 5000 शेयर्स. इफ अ कंपनी हैड 1 लाख शेयर्स टोटल, you own 5000 shares. You have how much equity? You have 5% ownership over the company. You will have 5% ownership over the dividend also. You will have 5% ownership over the decision making also. जब वोटिंग शेयर आएगा तो आपको 5% वोट मिलेगा. So this is like ordinary stock for the purpose of raising capital to expand business. The investor gets partial ownership over the company. The number of equity shares an investor buy is their portion of ownership in the company, and they are non-redeemable. Non-redeemable matlab you cannot come back and say, take your shares and give me my money back. You cannot do that. This is not doable. Are we understanding this? Equity shares are non-redeemable and therefore act as long-term source of financing for companies. That is why in the capital market. अब benefit क्या मिलेगा? If you are equity shareholder, आपके shares के prices बढ़ सकते हैं. That is capital appreciation. दूसरा benefit है, जो profit का share shareholders में distribute हो रहा है, dividend, you may be getting dividend. But these benefits are not fixed and are fluctuating. If the company is not making profit, you will not be getting dividend. Or if the company decides कि we are making profit but we are not distributing profit among shareholders, you may not get dividend. But bonds या debenture holder होते, would you have got interest payment? You would have got interest payment. Now, what are preference shares? What are preference shares? Shares तो समझ में आ गया. अब preference shares are also giving you ownership over the company. Preference shares are also giving you ownership over the company, but you get preferential rights over dividend payment and payment of capital, repayment of capital. What does that mean? It means that देखो, जो equity holder, normal equity holder था, that person may not get dividend every year. Company may decide 1 lakh shares हैं, he owns 5% of the share, 5000 shares. Company decides कि हमारे पास we have made a profit of 1 crore rupees. Let us keep 90 lakh rupees in the company. 10 lakh rupees distribute कर देते हैं किसमें? Shareholders में. So there are 1 lakh shares. 10 for every share 10 rupees will be distributed. He will get 5000 share के लिए 50,000 rupees. He got that dividend, but it dependent on the company. How much dividend will they be paying? And that will come when profit is being made. Whereas यहाँ पे क्या है? these shares may offer fixed dividends. Preference shares में you are getting ownership over the company too, plus you are getting what? Fixed dividends. Preferred then do you remember if the company is liquidated? कंपनी हमने अभी इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी कोड के अंदर लिक्विडेट किया था कंपनी को, तो सबसे पहले वी गिव द मनी टू इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी प्रोसीजर, देन वर्कमैन ड्यूज, secured creditors, unsecured creditors and so way. Then we had preference shareholders. उसके बाद थे इक्विटी होल्डर्स. तो जब लिक्विडेशन होगा एंड मनी हैज टू बी गिवन बैक, who will get priority among shareholders? Preference shareholders. So they have dividend, they have rights over capital before other equity holders. So preferred shareholders are given their dividend before equity shareholder. अच्छा, they're given dividend यहाँ पे भी. In terms of priority and repayment of capital, preference shares can be ranked between debt and equity. तो सारे debt payment हो जाएंगे, but equity से पहले किसका payment होगा? Preference shareholders का. अभी हमने वो फ्लो चार्ट देखा था इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी कोड में. फर्स्ट इंसॉल्वेंसी प्रोसीजर में जो पैसा खर्च हो रहा है, देन डेट वाले, वर्कमेन्स ड्यू, बाकी सारे डेट, देन प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स एंड देन नॉर्मल इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स. नॉर्मल इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स गेट मनी एट द लास्ट. प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर को उनसे पहले पैसा मिल जाता है. दे आर ऑल्सो अमंग्स द लास्ट पीपल टू गेट मनी, बट दे गेट मनी बिफोर normal equity shareholders, and therefore in terms of priority and repayment of capital, preference shares can be ranked between debt and equity. Debt वालों को पहले मिल जाएगा, equity वालों को उनसे बाद में, बीच में किसको मिलेगा? Preference shareholders. Okay, in case of bankruptcy, preferred shareholders, preference shareholders get priority over common shareholders. Okay, at any point of time, preference shares can be converted into equity shares. This may also happen. Preference shares can be redeemed after a certain period of time. So the redeemability of equity shares नहीं था, but preference shares can be converted into equity shares, and preference shares can also be redeemed or after the company successfully achieves the desired goal. Basically क्या होता है preference shares में? जैसे let's say Vasu has a company and Vasu comes and says कि buy my stocks, and I say I'm not interested. Then Vasu says कि चलो एक काम करो, you buy preference shares. Preference shares will ensure you dividend, fixed dividend, and preference shares, if at the end, like in 5 years, if I'm not able to achieve this, if I'm able to achieve this, I'll buy the shares back from you. It is redeemable also. So these kind of conditions can be put. So preference shares are, देखो अभी हमने बोला था equity shares are not redeemable. Preference shares can be redeemable also. Preference shares पे fixed dividend भी मिल सकता है. Do we get it? तो प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स आप तब इशू करोगे जब यू नीड, बिकॉज यहाँ पे यू हैव टू पे फिक्स डिविडेंड, है ना, तो यू मे बी डेस्परेटली नीडिंग मनी, राइट. देन लिमिटेशंस, प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स डोंट गेट राइट टू वोट और पार्टिसिपेट इन द डिसीजन मेकिंग इवेंट ऑफ द कंपनी. यू हैव ownership, kind of ownership over the company, but you don't get right to vote or take decisions. Why? Because आपका ना प्रेफरेंस, ये देखो, it is redeemable. तो it's not sure कि आप when this preference share becomes equity share, then you will be able to vote. But if preference share is redeemed, तो आपका तो long term से है ही नहीं ना, तो वहां पे you're not given right to vote etc. नहीं, IPOs are not preference share, वो नॉर्मल. देखो IPO क्या है, अभी हम पढ़ेंगे समझेंगे. When a company which is not public wants to go public, पहले वो क्या करेगी? वो IPO करेगी, इनिशियल पब्लिक ऑफरिंग. देखो हमारे शेयर से खरीदोगे, people will come and buy it. What are they buying? They're buying equity shares. They're buying equity shares. They're not buying, preference shares अलग से इशू होते हैं. तो IPO is normal equity shares का issue. Now you have bought those equity shares. I have got the money for long-term investment in the company. Now I'm running the company. Promoters are running the company or the CEOs are running the company and all. You are owners. आप मीटिंग्स में वोट कर पाएंगे, सारी चीजें होंगी. But if you want to sell the shares, you will not come to me. You will go to secondary market. You will sell it there. आपके बीच में जो भी बेचा जा रहा है, खरीदा जा रहा है, उससे I don't have any. I have got money for long term. ओके अभी आते हैं. तो डू वी अंडरस्टैंड द डिफरेंस बिटवीन इक्विटी शेयर्स एंड प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स? ब्रॉडली डिफरेंस समझ में आया. देन डेरिवेटिव्स. व्हाट आर डेरिवेटिव्स? अब देखो, when we were talking about shares, we said if a company has 1 lakh shares, उसमें आपके पास 5,000 shares है, तो you have 5% ownership over the company, है ना? Derivatives are slightly different. Derivatives derive its value. Derivatives are vastly different from equity stocks. They are contracts that derive their value from the underlying asset. So derivatives are basically what? Derivatives are contract. Contract is like मेरे और वासु के बीच में contract हुआ कि वासु you will give me 10 shares of Reliance Industries at this price. कब? 1 year later or 6 months later or right. So what is the value of this derivative? This value of this derivative is determined by the underlying asset. Contract के underlying asset क्या है? 10 shares of Reliance Industries. तो इसके अंदर इक्विटी शेयर्स हो सकते हैं. एसेट कैन भी, देखो यहां पे हम बोल रहे हैं डेरिवेटिव्स आर वास्टली डिफरेंट इक्विटी स्टॉक्स. दे आर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स दैट डिराइव देयर वैल्यू फ्रॉम एनी अंडरलाइंग एसेट्स. दिस एसेट कैन बी इक्विटी स्टॉक, जैसे मैंने बोला रिलायंस का 10 शेयर्स. दिस एसेट कैन बी करेंसी पेयर, लाइक in our contract we may say you will give me $1,000 at this exchange, $1,000 at this rupee वाला, तो डॉलर रुपी का पेयर होगा उसमें. तो देयर में भी करेंसी कि one year later I will take this much dollars from you at this price. This is a contract. तो इस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का वैल्यू विल बी डिटरमाइंड बाय अंडरलाइंग एसेट. ऐसे ही it may be a this derivative is what? It's a contract. It may be a contract for some commodity, gold, let's say. हमारा डील क्या हुआ है? This contract is saying you will give me 1 kg of gold in 70 lakh rupees. I'll give you 70 lakh rupees, you will give me 1 kg of gold. तो दिस, अब इस डेरिवेटिव का वैल्यू इज डिटरमाइंड बाय अंडरलाइंग एसेट. इस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के लिए अंडरलाइंग एसेट क्या हो गया? कमोडिटी गोल्ड. और दिस कमोडिटी कुड हैव बीन राइस, दिस कमोडिटी कुड हैव बीन व्हीट. 1000 kg of rice, 1000 kg of wheat. So derivatives are not shares. Derivatives are not giving you ownership over a part of the company. Derivatives are like, these are contracts whose value is determined by underlying asset. Let's say हमारा contract ये है कि Vasu will provide me 1 kg of gold in 70 lakh rupees. 1 kg of gold in 70 lakh. So I'll pay him 70 lakh rupees 1 year later. He'll provide me 1 kg of gold. Contract ये है. Suppose gold prices go to 1 crore 20 lakhs. तो क्या ये जो अपना contract है, जो suppose I hold it, I am supposed to buy it from him in 70 lakh rupees. तो will its value be higher? More people would be like, मुझे बेच दे ये derivative. Would they want it? Because you will get gold in 70 lakh rupees, but real market price of gold has become 1 crore rupees. है ना? तो अंडरलाइंग एसेट का वैल्यू कैसे फ्लक्चुएट हो रहा है, उससे इसका प्राइस डिटरमाइन होगा. किसका? डेरिवेटिव का. तो डेरिवेटिव डेराइव इट्स वैल्यू फ्रॉम अंडरलाइंग एसेट. थोड़ा समझ में आया? अभी हम फ्यूचर्स, ऑप्शंस, उन सब में भी जाएंगे, थोड़ा थोड़ा और समझ में आएगा. बट इफ यू राइट नाउ क्लोज योर आई एंड थिंक ऑफ शेयर्स, preference shares and derivatives, will you be broadly able to differentiate between them? Shares, normal equities, dividend मिल सकता है, voting rights है और non redeemable है. Preference shares, not preference shares, you get preference in dividend payment as well as preference in repayment. Liquidation के time you get preference, but you don't get voting rights, and these are redeemable too. This can also be converted into equity shares. Derivatives are basically contracts. Contract for some underlying asset. That underlying asset may be equity. It may be some currency pair. It may be commodity. That underlying asset may be this. It can be like, you'll give me $100 at this many rupee. Right? This can also be a contract. This is derivative. Do we get it? Do we understand this? Okay. Now derivatives can also be classified as futures and options. Ab what are futures and options? Derivatives को हम क्लासिफाई कर रहे हैं किसमें? Derivatives. So derivatives are what? Derivatives are basically contracts. We are classifying these contracts into future and option. मेरे को लगता है फ्यूचर और ऑप्शन पे क्वेश्चन आने के चांसेस हैं, बिकॉज नाउअडेज अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल इन्वेस्ट इन फ्यूचर एंड ऑप्शन, जिससे उनको लॉस हो रहा है. सेबी कीप्स ऑन कमिंग अप विद गाइडलाइंस कि नहीं, ये सब नहीं करना चाहिए. फ्यूचर एंड ऑप्शन में मोर देन 90% ऑफ पीपल आर मेकिंग लॉसेस ओनली. A lot of people, a lot of such news has been there. तो यहाँ पे हम फंडामेंटल समझ लेते हैं उसका. न्यूज वाली चीजें पढ़ेंगे, करंट अफेयर्स वाले सेक्शन में पढ़ेंगे. तो व्हाट इज फ्यूचर? What is future contract? Let us understand. Future contract simply is, भाई ये दो लोगों के बीच में कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है. I will provide you 1 kg of gold and in 7 you will provide me 70,000 rupees. कब? 1 year में. This is the contract. No one can go against this contract. You will have to buy it in 70,000 rupees. I have to provide you 1 kg of gold. Now gold prices may go to 60,000 or gold prices may go to 1 lakh rupees. It doesn't matter. This contract has to be fulfilled. There is no option here. आप समझो ऑप्शन में क्या होगा? ऑप्शन में ऑप्शन होगा कि नहीं खरीद रहे, नहीं बेच रहा. Those option may be there. अभी आते हैं उस पे. But did we understand derivatives में future वाला component? Did we understand what is future? In a future contract, two parties decide to purchase and sell underlying asset at a specific price on a specific date in future. This contract must be executed by both parties and neither party has the right to let the contract expire. I hope we're able to understand this. Pakka? We're all able to understand the future. So within derivative, future. Future तो होना ही पड़ेगा. Whatever is the contract, that contract must be executed. Options में क्या होता है? Options is also a derivative. The option will also derive its value from underlying asset. It gives the holder or buyer of the option contract the right to purchase or sell the underlying asset at a fixed price on or before a specific date. The option buyer is not obligated to carry out the terms. Option contract can be any of the two types. It can be a call option that offers right to buy the asset. It can be put option that offer the right to sell the asset. But वहां पे option है आपके पास. Call option that offers the right to buy the asset. Put option that gives you the option to sell the asset. But that is, you have the right to sell the asset. Right to sell does not mean you will definitely sell it. You will necessarily have to sell it. Right to buy, you have right to buy the asset. But if you don't want to buy it, you have an option. Future में did you have that? Future में you will have to buy it. Future में you will have to sell it. Option में if you have what? Call option, that is you have right to buy the asset. If you have put option, you have right to sell the asset. Okay, so coming back here. Here this transaction is supposed to occur. Let's say you have an option here where you have said ki in 70,000 rupees you will buy 1 kg of gold. You will buy 1 kg of gold in 70,000 rupees. Suppose this is the contract you have and this is what? Call option. अगर ये call option है, what will you say? I have the right to buy it. But if I find कि यार prices have dropped, 70,000 नहीं 60,000 हो गया है, I may say I'll not buy it. But इसके लिए मुझे कुछ प्रीमियम पे करना पड़ेगा. I'll have to pay some premium for it. I'll have to say some premium for it. Did we understand it? ऐसे ही there is put option. Put option is I'm saying I will sell 1 kg of gold in 70,000 rupees. But suppose gold prices have increased. They've gone to 90,000. So put option mein I can say I have the right to sell it, but I don't want to sell it. Is it possible? Yes, I don't want to sell it, but I'll have to pay some premium for it. I'll have to say pay some premium for it because other person would be losing. No, वो बैठा आपके पास right to sell था, मतलब someone was supposed to buy it. Now that person is not able to buy it, so you'll have to pay some premium there. This is option contract. So derivative में you can have future contract, you can have option contract. Future must be executed, option need not be executed. If it's a put option, you have right to sell, but you may not sell it. If it's a call option, you have the right to buy. Are we getting it? Option तो future option दोनों समझ में आया? पक्का? Now think of equity, preference shares and derivatives. Derivatives का value is determined by underlying asset. अब underlying asset का value can change. Underlying asset का जैसे price change हो रहा है, तो derivatives can be future, derivative can be option. Future में the contract must be executed. Option में you have an option of not executing the contract. You have an option, but for getting this option, आप तो अपने हिसाब से चलोगे ना फिर. When you have advantage, you will not execute the contract, right? So for this you must be paying some premium. So option में there is some premium has to be paid when you do not execute the contract. Okay, बात समझ में आई है? तो ये तीनों चीजें समझ में आ गई हमें. इक्विटी, प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स एंड डेरिवेटिव्स. डेरिवेटिव्स में फ्यूचर एंड ऑप्शन. ऑप्शन में पुट ऑप्शन एंड ऑप्शन में वी कैन हैव व्हाट? पुट ऑप्शन. ऑप्शन में यू कैन हैव कॉल ऑप्शन. पुट ऑप्शन में यू हैव राइट टू सेल, बट यू हैव एन ऑप्शन ऑफ नॉट सेलिंग इट. ऑप्शन है ना ये. कॉल ऑप्शन में यू हैव राइट टू बाय, बट यू हैव एन ऑप्शन ऑफ नॉट बाइंग इट. ऑप्शन है. फ्यूचर में that would have been compulsory. फ्यूचर में you had the right to buy, another person would have had the right to sell. तो आपको खरीदना पड़ेगा, उसे बेचना पड़ेगा. Future was that. Option में that may not be there. Are we able to understand this? Okay.